Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. Today we're test driving the 2016 Mazda CX-3. This is my first time with it. Now this is one of the newest entries in the new subcompact crossover SUV class. Now I say new because while we've always had compact SUVs like the RAV4 and the CR-V from Honda, these vehicles all sort of grew up into almost mid-sized vehicles now, so they had to start a new class for the compact, now subcompact crossovers, and this is one of the newest crop of them, and there aren't very many there yet. I'm talking about the Chevy Trax, the Honda HR-V, Fiat 500X, Jeep Renegade, and there might be one or two others, but not everybody's here yet. So let's see what this one is all about. First up is my take on the styling. I think this is really one of the best looking versions of Mazda's Kodo design language yet. It just looks so cute, like a bushy little squirrel squinting its eyes into the wind. And when you turn it around, its hindquarters make it look like it's ready to pounce and run up a tree. It has bulbous proportions and a stance that really works well, I think. And it has one of the more well done flying roof design themes that's much in vogue right now with the Japanese brands. Because this is a fully loaded Grand Touring model, it has the LED headlights and the nicer 18-inch painted alloy wheels. At the back, it gets LED taillights and a roof spoiler that accentuates its bounding character. It just needs a bushy tail to be complete. The interior is also fully decked here and very pleasing to the eyes. Grand Touring gets you leather seats, heated but not power operated. They have suede inserts that hold you tight and are quite comfortable. Red accents can be found here and there, along with red stitching all around that dresses it up nice. On the door panels is more of that suede trim that feels good on your arms when you lay them on the padded rests. So on this interior, if you're someone who lives in your car a lot, there's a couple things I need to show you that are very important, and if you're considering buying one of these, please do test all this stuff out for yourself, because for me, this would be a deal killer. Now let's start with the infotainment system. There's a touchscreen up here, and down here on the console you've got a puck and a volume knob and a couple of other buttons to use with that. Now first of all, this is a touchscreen, so if you're sitting here stationary, you can use this as a touchscreen and navigate around here with the menus. And the thing is, the minute you become mobile, it stops being a touchscreen. It will not let you use it. You're forced to then use the knob down here on the console. Now, if you happen to have the armrest down like I do, it's partially obscured from view, and you have to reach backward. Notice this, you have to reach backward to do things like adjust your volume or turn this knob. Now, yes, I'll stipulate there are controls here on the steering wheel, but if you're just trying to use this, it's nearly impossible with this down. Now, so we've established that. Now, here's how we do simple things like try to tune the station. I'm on a station right here, so I need to click over here to these buttons, and I'll go here. I have to press it. All right, so I'll get this station right here. That's good. I want to save it to my favorites. So now I scroll over here to the favorites button. I click on this. Now it throws me a list of my favorites, but I keep my satellite stations a little further down the list than I do some of the others, so I want to save it here. I press the button. No, that didn't work. I press it again. I hold it. There we go. Now it's asking me to confirm, so I press the button again. Now it's added the favorites. That's awesome. So the favorites list comes back up, and guess what? It starts back at the bottom of the list. Now I have to scroll back down to where they were if I want to choose another station. So let's say I've done that. I click on the station and off I go. It's just not very well laid out as far as the menus, because imagine this. Imagine you're doing this while you're driving. You just watched what I did. Imagine you're trying to drive and you're trying to look down here and deal with this. You just can't. It's just not very well laid out. It's not easy to use. It's not very well designed. And quite honestly, this is now the top of the list for one of the most frustrating infotainment systems in any car that I test, now that the My4 Touch has been replaced from Ford. Now, there are a couple other things here. First of all, there's not very much storage in here. There is no storage here. The cup holders are actually underneath the armrest. Not very good design. So you can't have an armrest and cup holders at the same time. That's partially because this knob here for the infotainment system, which very well could have been used up here on the dash, lots of real estate there that's doing nothing.
just bad design. The second thing is, if you carry, see how hard that is, if you carry a smartphone around with you, it doesn't fit here. The space for the smartphone isn't large enough, and this isn't the largest of phones out there. This is just a Droid Razr Max, and it won't fit here. But you've got your plugs, you've got your power, your USB, auxiliary, all of that, so you can plug it in, but it's going to have to sit kind of cocked there. Just not very well done. Now, if you're sitting in the back seat and you're an adult, I'm about 5'9", you're going to find that it's a little bit snug back here. The seat here is a little bit on the low side. As you can see, my knees are perched up just a bit. Now, these front seats aren't all the way back. They're about halfway front and back. So if they were further back, well, I'd be even more uncomfortable. Headroom's okay, but the thing I really want to point out here more than anything, because this is a compact, I've sat in the back of the Honda HR-V. It's not quite this tight, and I've also sat in the back of the Fiat 500X. Again, not this tight, but there aren't very many amenities back here. There are no vents back here for the HVAC, and there are no plugs for any of the USB or power ports. And considering this is a fully loaded model that's right around $30,000, I think that's something that, well, is a bit missing.
The rear seats do fold down in a 60-40 split as expected, easy without having to remove the headrests. They make for a flat load floor, but one that's pretty high up. Under that rear floor is a small storage area, but it's only about 2 inches high, so not really useful for much, not even a pair of shoes. At least one more layer under there is a spare tire, which is always a plus in a crossover SUV. In the larger picture, the interior has decent materials, but really just suffers a lot from design issues that really lend me to believe that the people at Mazda really don't spend much time actually living in their cars. Thus, I rate it at 3 of 5 stars.
One feature this has, because we're getting into the world where almost all cars now offer lane keeping assist and the driver assistance systems, is it has a lane keeping assist system which alerts you when you're veering out of your lane, if you change lanes without your turn signal, that is. So I'm going to do that here. Now, I don't know if you heard that. This actually has a little bit of a noise. It's like a burp. It's just very subtle, and I like that. It's when these cars have these loud beeps that just scare the hell out of you that I don't like. That I appreciate.
Driver assistance features always please me when they do their job without disturbing the peace, and best of all, they have an off switch here in the CX-3, which is even better. But all in, the technologies are another area where Mazda really needs to get it together, I think. Because if you think I was being too nitpicky with what I showed you on the infotainment system, note that I was just scratching the surface. I could have done a 30-minute video on all the reasons why this system is less than livable, let alone competitive, but nobody wants to watch that. It has great audio quality from its Bose hardware, but using it is almost unsafe while driving, bringing the technology score to 3 of 5 stars. Alas, moving on to what makes the CX-3 go is its 2-liter 4-cylinder Skyactiv engine. Skyactiv is a marketing term for the fact that it runs clean and sips fuel. It has 148 horsepower and comes only with a 6-speed automatic transmission.
This is a very noisy engine. That's the first thing that really jumps out at me. This thing makes a lot of racket, and you really have to push it hard to get power out of it too. This is a pretty heavy compact for an engine this size, and this engine really does work hard to get you moving, and unfortunately you have to race the engine like that to really get power, and it just isn't that fun. Now, on the upside, this has a traditional 6-speed automatic transmission, which is far better than a CVT any day of the week, like the Honda HR-V has. But this transmission is a little bit fussy in the way it behaves. When you ask for a downshift, when you floor it, it doesn't always give it to you. And when you're taking off from a stop, sometimes it's a little bit abrupt. It's a very fussy transmission in the way it behaves. Now, it does have a sport mode here, which when you put it in there, basically, all it really does is downshift you 1 gear, so the engine's always racing, so it gives you the feeling like you're being sporty, but really what you're doing is wasting gas.
Its powertrain, while less than exhilarating, does offer up good fuel economy. The EPA pins it at 27 mpg city, 32 mpg highway, and 29 mpg combined. In my time with it, I got 32 mpg combined, and I didn't have to work that hard to get it. You'll probably do even better with a front-wheel drive only model. In scoring the powertrain, though, it's rough and noisy, particularly at startup. It just doesn't have the silky smoothness of the Honda HR-V or even the 500X from Fiat or the Jeep Renegade, neither of which are known for their refinement. It earns 3 of 5 stars here.
When it comes to ride and drive, this has a very firm ride. As you'd expect in a Mazda, they've always had the zoom thing going, right? We've talked about that. They're supposed to be sporty. They're supposed to have more of a handling character, and it definitely has that. No question about it. When you're rolling down the street, the highway, you feel every bit of the road surface, which I personally like. The steering a little bit heavier than I'd like for any vehicle because it's sort of artificial, but it does have a good steering feel, and it certainly doesn't have a lot of tippiness or fore and aft rock and roll when you step on the gas or the brake. It's got a very firm chassis. The big question remains is how does this handle off the pavement, which is where crossover SUVs are supposed to go, right? Now, this wouldn't be one of my tests if I didn't bring this out to the Desert Washboard Road to see how well it does perform off the pavement. And that's because even though this isn't true off-roading, this is a great test to see how well put together this is and how well tuned the suspension is, how well the suspension absorbs a lot of the bumps and the surface, the vibrations, and does it transmit that stuff into the passenger compartment. And what I'm finding out is this thing's actually kind of loose out here. Woo! The stability control's just in and out quite a bit. But that's not what I'm trying to find out. What I'm finding out is that because this is tuned for a sporty drive on the pavement, it tends to be quite rough out here. The vibrations, the shocks, the noise, it all transmits into this passenger compartment pretty loudly. And I'm even getting a little bit of shuddering, a little bit of vibration that I'm feeling in the suspension and in the steering here, which is never a good thing.
The all-wheel drive system in the Mazda CX-3 is of the passive type. This means it behaves as a front-wheel drive vehicle most of the time unless it detects slippage, and only then will it send power to the rear wheels. Overall, the chassis, as said, offers a sportier handling character on the pavement than most, but it comes at the cost of a harsher and noisier ride off the tarmac. In that way, it earns 4 of 5 stars in the chassis department. When it comes to quality feel, the Mazda CX-3 is reasonably good on most counts. Exterior finish and body panel fit is good. Inside, there are some finishes that don't match up to one another here and there, as well as the rattles that crop up on rougher roads. Overall, quality feel comes in at 4 of 5 stars.
Well friends, wrapping it up for the 2016 Mazda CX-3, let's have a look at the specs. Now as you can see here, the price on this one right around $30,000. We're near top out on this, give or take for a few extra options or accessories at your dealer, and at that price I think we're near competitive with a lot of its other peers, but I think the most important thing to point out here is a lot of the areas we already measured were really not up to class average, and we talked about those things. The one thing it does do well, fuel economy. 32 mpg. That's what I got during my time with it, and that's pretty good. That is an average city and highway. I'm impressed there, but overall I put the value at 4 stars. When you put that in with everything else, we're at 3.5 stars for our test. I'm Sam Haymar for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride.
If you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We test 1, sometimes 2 cars each week, plus we have a new video almost every single day. There's always something new, so stay tuned.